Okay, we will go ahead and get started. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us tonight for Food as Medicine, Nourishing Meals for Optimized Health and Energy. My name is Nels Challenor. I am the Operations and Program Coordinator for Northwest Hope and Healing. You've probably seen my emails and my texts. As you can see, I'm in my kitchen this evening. Maybe you're in your kitchen as well, but no matter where you are, thank you for being here. Just a quick administrative note, please. We want you to participate. We want you to ask questions and engage with the content that Mary has prepared for us this evening. But please mute yourself unless you're getting ready to ask a question or asking a question. That'll just make sure that the audio stays sounding great for the recording. And I'm going to go ahead and hand the microphone over to Stephanie Erdahl, who's a longstanding board member of Northwest Hope and Healing and a personal friend of our founder, Christine Smith. Over to you, Stephanie.
Thank you, Nels. Hi, all. I'm going to use my notes because I'm Christmas. My brain is packed from all the Christmas stuff, so I don't want to forget anything or anybody important. So again, thank you, Nels. You are holding so many things together, and we get to experience all the talents of Nels. We keep discovering more and more all the time. And I want to do a special thank you to our executive director, who is the glue, and that everybody I know says things are more fun and successful when Karen is involved, and I wholeheartedly agree. So thank you for all you do, Karen. And I must also quickly thank my fellow board members, Kristen Bates and Jen Peel, for stepping up to put together this fantastic week of wellness. It's really something special, and I'm so proud to be a part of it. Yes, I've been lucky enough to have known our incredible founder, Christine Smith, for over 2 decades. I'm so proud of her for fighting the fight and keeping others fighting the fight, starting with her signature gift baskets she put together in her garage in West Seattle to give others hope and guidance. And now, 20 years later, her foundation helps thousands of families with assistance in ways that are not only immediate, but profoundly impactful. Most certainly, as we see those affected just this month, having the ability to provide holiday dinners, gifts, and in some cases, we were able to keep the heat on, and even provide rental assistance. We appreciate the amazing generosity of our partners all over the Puget Sound, who make our patients and families feel a little Christmas all year round. And now I'm so happy to introduce the talented Mary Purdy to our second evening of the Weekend of Wellness. Mary has a master's in clinical nutrition, is a successful podcast host, author, and a regular contributor on Cairo Radio and Q13 TV. We are grateful to have her tonight, and a woman with so much helpful information on so many topics. Mary, I'll let you get the conversation started.
Okay, well, thank you so much. As Nels was saying, I want to think of this as a discussion, as a workshop, and make sure that you all feel celebrated and able to participate. So if you like participating verbally, great. If you like participating via the chat, wonderful. Feel free to ask questions or make a comment in the chat as well. And I'd love to kick us off by having everyone go to the link that I put into the chat and start filling out the first question. Hopefully you can see the link. It's under menti.com or menti.com and use a certain code. You can click right on the link and it should take you there as well. So if you have any problems, let me know. I can send the link again. And let me share my screen so we can actually see what some of your responses are. So the first question that I asked you, hopefully you can all see this, is what nourishes you? And you're welcome to say more than just one thing. Are you able to actually say something? Are you able to go back and fill this out? It's looking to me like voting is closed here for some reason. Are you able to put your answers in?
Mary, it says that voting is closed and the presenter has to open voting. Just wanted to let you know.
Yeah, let me see what I might need to do for that. Let's see if we can go back here. I might need to, let's see. Let me see if I can get back. And you know what, if it doesn't work out, that this, even though maybe you can see what it says, you can also put into the chat what feels like it nourishes you. So feel free to just put your answer in the chat as well, and then I can see if the second question actually works. So what nourishes you? Feel free to just put that into the chat area if you would. I'd be so grateful if we can actually get to the Mentimeter. I see from Jen Peel, fruit and veggies primarily, humor and hugs. Great, we've got some nice alliteration going on here. Solitude, time in nature, healthy food, roasted sweet potatoes, and good old-fashioned H2O. Thank you for that chemical formulation there. Anything else? What else nourishes you? Bath and books, healthy food, and fresh air. Excellent, beautiful. These are all incredibly nourishing. Well, let me see if I can make this second one work here. And let's see if we can go to our second question. Let me know if this one works. What are you hoping to get from this workshop? Are you able to do an application here? Are you able to actually make this work? And I'm also just seeing one more piece in the chat here. 8 hours of sleep. Yes, so nourishing. Wonderful. So anything you're hoping in particular to get from this workshop, and of course I may not be able to get to everything, but I certainly would like to know what you're hoping for so I can try to cover as much as I can. Info about a healthy diet. Great. Hoping to learn some healthy cooking and eating tips. All right, excellent. Interested in sustainable foods. Oh, that just happens to be my specialty. Fantastic. I actually call myself an eco-dietitian because I believe that we can no longer separate environmental health from human health. Helpful tips for eating healthfully without too much complication. You're my kind of person, my friend. I am not a complicated eater or food preparer or cook/chef. So that's what we'll be doing tonight with our food demo as well. Keeping it simple, KIS. Anything else that people are hoping to get from this workshop? All right, those are some great starts. Let's actually get to the presentation here. And again, feel free to put things into the chat if you've got a question or a comment. I welcome your thoughts and ideas. Really, very often we learn so much from each other when we have these kinds of workshops. It's not just me yammering on about what I think is good for you or good for the planet. It's really about a combination of minds and brains coming here to help each other learn from one another. So let's get started. If we think about this question, why does food and nutrition matter? What comes to mind for you? Why the heck are we even talking about food? We talked a little bit about, what nourishes us. Some of you mentioned sweet potatoes and water, but why does food and nutrition matter in our lives? What do you think? Anyone have thoughts about this? Feel free to throw it in the chat. I can move it along as well. If people are not feeling chatty, that's fine, all good. And maybe you'll continue as we go along. But obviously food and nutrition nourishes us, right? But it gives us energy as well. And it connects us to our culture in many ways. It connects us to our communities, maybe our family. It connects us to the environment. And when I say that, I'm talking about our natural environment, the earth, the land in which we grow our food. And nutrient status affects health and disease. So I never talk about food in terms of calories as much as I talk about food as information for our bodies. Every chemical reaction that is happening in your body right now, and I'm guaranteeing you, there's 100, maybe thousands of chemical reactions happening in your body at this instant. That is being driven by nutrients. So every single cell, organ, and system in our body is affected by nutrition. And the thing that I want us to consider is the title of this is Food is Medicine. However, not all food is medicine, right? And very often this has to do with whether we have access to food, how much food costs, what's available to us, what's familiar to us or comfortable for us. Maybe we don't have a lot of cooking experience. Maybe we don't enjoy being in the kitchen that much. Is the food culturally appropriate for us? And our current industrial food system is something that we have got to think about, because how food is grown right now on an industrial level actually has an impact on the quality of that food, particularly as it relates to soil health. And when soil is not a robust and resilient bevy of nutrients, that affects the nutritional value of the plants and the food that we eat, which affects our health as well. So there really is no one way of eating that's right for every single person. This is why personalization is key. So you might say to me, Mary, what's the best diet? And I will tell you, I absolutely do not know. Let's talk. So why is it important to eat in this healthy way? We just talked about how nutrition and food are important, but what does eating healthfully do for us? Well, we usually have more energy, our health is improved, our immunity is enhanced, our ability to be resilient in the face of medical issues or the face of infections or pandemics, as the case may be, is enhanced. We can prevent disease, we can maintain a healthy weight, we can live a little longer. I don't know about you, but I'm planning to live to be 100 at least. So I'm just halfway there right now. We can improve from illnesses better or more quickly. And of course, it helps with our brain function and our stamina. So again, I ask you in the chat to tell me, what does eating healthy look like to you? What does it mean from your point of view to be a healthy eater? Any thoughts about this? Oh, and I'm seeing some more things in the chat here. Fuel, comfort, prevention of cancer recurrence. It's fuel, it's comfort, it fuels our machines. Wonderful, helps our bodies to work well. Okay, so I'm seeing that Susan says that eating healthy looks mostly plant-based. Shelley says a well-rounded diet. Any other thoughts on this? And actually, as we're thinking about this, let's launch our first poll, Nils, as well. That would be great, and get a sense of what people's thoughts are about our first question. Less processed foods, yes. And it's helpful to differentiate between processed foods and ultra processed foods. And I'm seeing you're saying whole foods, fresh foods, whole foods. Processed foods can be actually okay. In some cases, olive oil might be considered a processed food because you took olives and you made oil out of them. That's processed. But we're talking about those really ultra processed foods where you've basically processed all of the nutrients out of that food. Any luck with the poll, Nels, by any chance?
So Mary, I'm just going to give you a quick update here. We still seem to be having some issues just due to the fact that at some point, we were double logged on. Is there any way that we can do the poll sort of live? So you just ask the question and people put the responses into the chat?
Sure. Yeah, I can do that. I wanted it to be anonymous just in case people felt funny about the answer. So anyone who doesn't want to participate in the polls, no worries. I'm also seeing another way of eating healthy from Jen is eating small meals instead of eating giant meals. So the question I was going to ask in the poll was, on a scale of 1 to 4, with 1 being less healthy and 4 being very healthy, what do you consider yourself on that realm? Do you consider yourself to be someone who is less healthy or more healthy or very healthy? And again, that's a question of like 1 to 4. Seeing lots of 3s here so far. And again, no pressure to participate in this poll if you want to keep things anonymous. Lots of 3s, and hey, there's a 4 in there as well. Okay, great. Thanks for sharing that. Appreciate it. So the reason why I wanted to ask that was to make sure that we understand what food actually does. When we think about a balanced meal, and I saw you guys talk about whole foods, I want to make sure that we understand the role that all of these nutrients play in our bodies so we understand why we might need them at a meal or in general. So carbohydrates, which I think get a bad rap sometimes, are really important. They give us fuel, they help us think, they help us exercise with more stamina, and many carbohydrates contain lots of vitamins and minerals that help our body to function. And the question that I ask all the time is every carb the same? And the big answer is no. Complex carbohydrates are the ones that really have more benefit. So that's the complex kind of carbohydrate that you might look at it and you go, oh, that could get stuck in my teeth. Okay, complex carbohydrate, great, awesome. These usually have more vitamins and minerals. They contain antioxidants. They've got fiber. And what does fiber do? It lowers cholesterol, it manages blood sugar, it feeds our gut microbiome, all those wonderful organisms hanging out in our intestines that play a huge role and influence our health. These carbohydrates also keep us fuller longer, which usually means that we don't need as much food because we're more satiated, and that can help with maintaining a healthy weight if that's something that someone's working on. And they give us a more sustained amount of energy as opposed to some of the refined carbohydrates, which give us that quick energy, like, whoa, I'm hungry, I need some energy. Bam, I got it with the cookies, the candies, the cakes, the white flour. This is not just sweets. This is potato chips or bread. And these are often things that we crave when we're hungry or we're tired or we're emotional, we haven't slept enough, and they give that immediate boost, right? But what they wind up doing is raising blood sugar, causing the body to overproduce insulin. They can actually compromise our immune system, our immune function, deplete our energy, even though we feel we've got that energy. Ultimately, we're not getting the real energy that sustains our cells and our organs. And they've experienced this yourself, they lead to a lack of focus and concentration. Additionally, on a more significant level, when we have more empty calories, we tend to be hungrier, which can lead to overeating and eating foods that have no nutritional value, right? And also, many refined carbohydrates wind up getting stored as fat, which can lead to unhealthy weight gain or high triglycerides, which is a marker of fats in the blood that is associated with heart disease. And then something like high fructose corn syrup, which is found in sodas, but in many other foods as well, is connected to a lot of what we call cardiometabolic issues. So really interfering with our metabolism, having an impact on our heart as well, and liver. So there's our carbohydrates, a real quick sneak peek at carbs. What about protein? Why do we need protein? Anyone have ideas about what the heck protein does for our bodies? Why is it important? Anyone got thoughts about it?
Builds muscle.
All right, it builds muscle. Muscle development, question mark. All right, we got two muscle people. What else does protein do for us? What is the function of protein?
Gives us energy.
Okay, gives us energy, sustains energy, big time. Satiety, yes. Wow, you guys are all on the same page. Are you talking to each other like privately in the chat? Keeps us full, absolutely. Great ideas here. So you mentioned it gives us energy. It also builds our blood, our skin, our hair, our bones, and our organs, in addition to our muscles. It is a huge part of our immune system. It repairs our body when we are sick. If you've had burns or if you've been in surgery, you actually need close to double what you would normally need on the protein front. And those amino acids that make up protein are essential for creating our brain chemicals, the chemicals that make us feel good, like serotonin, dopamine. These are called neurotransmitters. So we need our protein for our brains as well. Here's a few ideas about protein sources. Obviously, there's animal protein sources. This is very dependent on what people's culture or how they eat, or how they prefer to eat. These are some of the sources. And some of these sources, depending on the type of source or the type of protein from an animal, can contain some healthy fats. Not all of them, but there can be that. Plant sources include things like your beans, your lentils, your tofu, tempeh, edamame, nuts and seeds. Of course, protein powders for people who maybe can't get enough from the other sources. And these plant sources tend to have more fiber in them and tend to have healthy plant chemicals in them as well. And I'm seeing someone ask, what about complete proteins? Plant sources can give us that, but I would tell you this. So plant sources that give us that are chia seeds, beans when they are combined with rice, and then soy protein is a complete protein. And actually quinoa is a complete protein as well, but it doesn't usually, you'd have to eat a lot to get a sufficient amount to fill you up. But that's why they pair rice and beans with each other, and they don't need to be paired within the same hour. They can be paired within a 24-hour period, but there's an amino acid that beans are missing that rice has, and so they make for a nice little perfect marriage there. But thank you for that. And you might say, well, how much protein do I need? Well, I'm going to come back with the age-old answer, which is it depends, it depends, it depends. Approximately healthy, active people need around 1 gram of protein per kilogram of body weight. Now, we as Americanos do not really talk about our weight in terms of kilograms, but it's about half of what your typical weight would be. So let's say if someone weighs about 150 pounds, about half of that is 75 pounds, and we're doing about 1 gram of protein per that. So around 75 grams a day. But again, we like to have that range depending on how active you are, how healthy you are, and of course, what your personal needs are. It's great to work with somebody to personalize that. In general, I've worked with thousands of patients, and I would say most people need about 15 to 25 grams of protein per meal and about 5 to 10 grams of protein in a stack. If we get less than that, very similar to what you all said in the chat, we just don't feel satiated. We feel hungry, or our brains don't function as well, or our muscles don't recover as well, or our immune system may not work as well, especially if we're compromised. So when people crave a lot of foods or crave a lot of sugar, I will very often look first, how much protein are you getting at each meal? I'm not talking about an abundance of protein or an excessive amount. We really don't want more or need more than 25 grams at one meal, because actually the body doesn't really process protein well if it's beyond 30 or 35 grams of protein. Yeah, so I see Karen asking, can you eat too much protein? Yes, you can. Number one, if you're eating too much protein, you might be displacing other nutrients that are really important for optimal health. But also, especially if your kidneys are compromised, your kidneys have to break down protein into usable components that the body can put into play. So if you're overdosing on the protein, it can be a little bit strenuous on the kidneys. That's not for everybody, but if somebody does have kidney dysfunction or is compromised in that way, it can be particularly problematic. And if you're going to your friend saying, well, what the heck is 25 grams of protein look like? What's this lady talking about? How the heck do I know what 5 grams of protein is? Well, here's a little cheat sheet here. So here's 2 eggs, 14 grams, a cup of beans or lentils, depending on the bean or lentils, about 15 to 18 grams per cup. A fourth a cup of nuts, again, depends on the nut or the seed, is about 4 to 7 grams, and 3 ounces of fish or meat, 21 grams, 3 ounces of tofu, I threw that in there, about 10 grams, depending on the type of tofu, and edamame is about 15 grams. So all foods will have a little bit, a piece of broccoli will have a little bit of protein. It ain't a complete protein, so it's probably not going to fill you up, but it does have a little bit of protein. So those, gradually throughout the day, you're getting enough protein to hopefully meet your needs. And we do know that eating large amounts of red meat and processed meats in particular is associated with a much higher risk of heart disease and cancer. And that's according to the American Institute of Cancer Research. So the goal, if you are someone who consumes meat, is to keep those portions to about 11 to 15 ounces per week, and to really focus on high quality organic meats when possible, if that's accessible, if that's in your wheelhouse, if that's something that you can afford. Those are things that I recommend as an option. And when it comes to portions, that 3 ounces is about a deck of cards. If you don't play cards, you're going, what is that ace of hearts over there? Then you're looking at about the size of your palm to get about 3 ounces. And again, that's around 21 grams. Now, the key consideration here is it is all about the source and it is all about the quality. Protein is not protein is not protein. Not all proteins are the same, even if they are both fish. One fish may come from a really high quality source and another may not. And therefore the quality of that fish and the nutritional value of that fish may be different. So that really is a key part of this conversation, is not just thinking about the food itself, but thinking about where that food came from. And also the environmental impact, the sustainability component of that food. We know that in general, animal-based foods have a much, much higher carbon footprint and methane footprint as well than plant-based foods. And again, this is about the source. There may be less environmental considerations if something is being raised or grown in a way that is more environmentally friendly, using fewer chemicals, being raised in a more humane way, or being grass-fed. That can actually shift the quality of that meat, shift the life experience of that animal, and have a different impact on the environment. And then, of course, culture is really important and access is important. I'm not going to tell someone to stop eating meat or fish if that's a really important part of their culture, or if that's a really easy source of protein that's cheap for them to access easily. So it really does depend on the person and the situation. Okay, so there's our protein primer. Let's talk about fats. Again, I'm looking for your input here. Why the heck do we need fat? Why are fats essential to every single diet? What are your thoughts here about this? And saying you like them is a great reason too. Why do we need our fats? I see energy. Yes, so fats are a great energy storage source. Anybody else on the fat front? All right, I'll tell you. And you're free to continue to throw in your ideas. Hey, absorption of vitamins. Yes, helping with neurologic function. Now you're getting there, you guys. You're coming in. You're all sleepers here. It's quiet, and then all of a sudden, bam, brilliance. To cook with, I believe that is supposed to be. Yes, fantastic. Okay, so we need fats because they protect and cushion our organs, and we need our organs to be protected. They provide energy in a form of wonderful storage. They help with our absorption of fat-soluble vitamins like A, D, E, and K, just like I think Jen was saying. And they are also, when we talk about essential fatty acids, which are just as they are described, essential to our bodies, that helps with our brain, that helps with our skin, that helps with our heart, which are all important organs. Additionally, fat brings flavor. It helps food to taste good. As someone was mentioning, it's nice to cook with fat because it actually helps to bring out the flavor of the food that we are making. It makes us full. It helps to help with satiety. It actually slows down our digestion. So if we eat carbohydrate by itself, our blood sugar rises, right? But if we eat carbohydrate with a fat, the fat actually slows down the rate at which the carbohydrate enters our bloodstream or enters our body because it's sitting there in our stomach, and that can help avoid blood sugar spikes. So fat and protein actually are helpful for both of those things. Here's some supportive fats, those essential fatty acids, omega-3s, omega-6s in their whole foods form, our fish oil, our walnuts, our almonds, our pecans, our hazelnuts. Very often we get stuck in an almond rut. Anyone ever here been in an almond rut? Yes, it's time to get out of the almond rut and into the rest of the world of nuts and seeds. So cashews, sunflower, pumpkin seeds, flax seeds, hemp seeds, chia seeds are all wonderful sources, whole food sources of these wonderful fatty acids. And I want to spotlight omega-3s because these are particularly important, and very often we don't get enough of these. They're key for our immune function. They're absolutely essential for our brain to function. They can improve the good cholesterol, the HDL, right? They help with lowering blood pressure, which is good for the old ticka right here. They reduce risk for strokes and heart attacks. They lower those triglycerides, which are those fats that are in the blood that can cause issues with heart disease and insulin resistance and fatty liver. And they can help with inflammatory conditions like arthritis, and that can be even related to things like rheumatoid arthritis as well. Now, some people get nervous about omega-6s, and I would say omega-6s in whole foods are 100% fantastic. The problem comes when we are having high amounts of omega-6s in very, very refined forms. So we see things like corn oil, safflower oil, sunflower oil, soybean oil. These are very often the oils that are used in a lot of restaurants, and very often they're used in large amounts. So when that is our main fat source, which in many cases it is, this is the main source of fat in the American diet, we aren't necessarily serving our bodies as well. They're refined, they are bleached, they are chemicalized, and when they are heated or fried, they actually become trans fats, which we know have negative health implications. In high amounts, they can be inflammatory to the body. So just check the ingredients. Very often it can be easy for those oils to add up in a way that may not be as helpful to our bodies as eating those fats in their whole form. Here's some more healthy fats in the monounsaturated form, which you don't have to memorize. Here's our beautiful olives, our avocado, the olive oil, the hemp seed. Again, these are fats that help with cholesterol and the heart. They help with skin, and they're very often seen in the Mediterranean diet. Saturated fats, I want to make sure that we understand. There's a lot of controversy about them. The research that I have done, the blood work that I've done with hundreds and hundreds of patients shows that when people have an excessive amount of saturated fat in their diet, certain individuals do not do well with that. We see a higher level of inflammation, higher levels of cholesterol, and they're found mostly in meats, butter, cheese, and egg. And we do see them in plant foods as well, like coconut and palm oil and peanut oil and cottonseed. So the diet of the animal is also a factor. When we think of a meat or we think of cheese that comes from an animal that is grass-fed, that saturated fat level is going to be lower in those animals. So that's something to consider. And moderate amounts of saturated fat are not necessarily bad. We do need some. And then if we think of coconut fat, which does have saturated fat in it, there are some positive benefits. And I would say this is less about the oil than it is about the meat and the milk, which have all of these other components like carbohydrates and a little bit of protein and other fiber and other nutrients, whereas the oil of the coconut is just the oil, is just the fat. So that can have not as healthy implications as some of the foods in their whole form. But there are some positive benefits: metabolism, digestion, immune function. They can also act as antibacterial agents, antifungal. And I saw someone wrote in the chat, what do I cook in for oil? Well, boy, this is a big question. I would say one of the things that you can do is you can cook in olive oil at a low heat, and you can also cook in olive oil, but add water into it so that the olive oil doesn't get overly hot and ruin some of the really beneficial fats that are in there. If you want to cook at a high heat, depending on what you're making, you can still cook in a broth. I often recommend that as another option to be able to cook greens or make stir fries in an actual veggie broth or a chicken broth instead of heating the oil, which may have negative implications depending on which oil you use or how high heat the oil gets to. But coconut oil is a nice one to cook with, and high oleic sunflower seed oil is another one that can withstand a little bit more heat, and so can sesame oil. But again, using those more in moderation and adding a little bit of water to the pan or the pot can really help minimize some of the negative impacts of the interaction that heat and oil go through. And then, of course, not going to spend too much time here, the fats that I will characterize as bad because they have nothing redeeming about them. These are our trans fats that are known as partially hydrogenated oils. They increase our bad cholesterol, lower good cholesterol, increase all kinds of inflammatory conditions like arthritis, insulin resistance, triglycerides. They compromise immune function, and they're associated with an increased risk of cancer. So anything we can do to avoid or minimize these is great. And then our fruits and vegetables. All right, people, why do we need fruits and vegetables in our lives? Anyone know? What do they bring to us? Vitamins. Yes, indeed. Anything else? Fiber. Yes, indeed, Susan. Glucose, fiber. Absolutely. So yes, they give us lots of vitamins and minerals. These are just a few. They help us to poop, says Karen. Exactamundo. Dark leafy greens give us vitamin K, which is helpful for bone health, folate, which are both helpful for heart and brain health. When we get enough folate, it can prevent an elevated blood marker that people often get tested called homocysteine. So your dark leafy greens can help prevent high homocysteine, which is associated with brain issues or cognitive function or dysfunction rather, and cardiovascular issues. And then we get lots of plant chemicals, otherwise known as phytonutrients or phytochemicals. And this is not the chemical from like Windex. This is chemicals that are natural compounds found in fruits and vegetables that are protective. They help our immune system to function better and be more resilient. They reduce inflammation. We also see fruits and vegetables giving us fiber, supporting the health of our microbiome, right? And that microbiome plays such a huge role in our health. They help with digestion because the enzymes that are naturally found, as long as we haven't heated the fruits and vegetables up too high, they have natural enzymes that help us to digest our food better. And they've got wonderful natural sweetness. Yes, even vegetables like sweet potatoes and carrots and onions have a natural sweetness, which can help us with our sugar cravings, and they give us energy. Just want to give a quick spotlight to our berries. These are one of the richest antioxidant foods of any fresh fruit. They are rich in vitamin C, potassium, fiber, and blueberries have a special compound in them that have been shown to support the brain. We're not super in season right now, but they will be soon. And then my veggie spotlight is your kale, collards, and leafy greens category. Just an incredible amount of minerals and vitamins. They're rich in chlorophyll. They've got beta carotene in them, which is very important for cancer prevention, lots of fiber. And they also contain two compounds called lutein and zeaxanthin. And my husband always thinks I'm making that word up, but I swear to God, it is a real word. It is a real compound that helps keep the eyes really healthy and prevents macular degeneration. So here's a healthy plate. If we're thinking about what does a balanced meal look like? Well, we need all of those pieces that I just mentioned. We need some kind of a carbohydrate, right? We need some kind of a protein. I just threw salmon in here. And then we need all of our bevy of variety of fruits and vegetables, some kind of a healthy fat. And I always like to have some kind of a digestive here as well to help improve our digestive fire. And that's where herbs and spices come in. Not only do they taste delicious, but they help with having anti-inflammatory properties, which can help with things like arthritis. They've got antioxidants. They help with digestion. The green herbs contain chlorophyll, which is magnesium rich. They are energizing. They enhance our immune function. So the more we can add herbs and spices to our plates, the better. Lastly, just want to take a quick moment to talk about water, and I'm going to take a sip of some right now. Yes. They lubricate our joints, or it lubricates our joints, helps us to poop. Karen might appreciate that as well. Helps us to remove toxins from the body, which is related to helping us poop. Gives us energy, helps with craving. Very often when someone has sugar cravings, remember I talked about getting protein in there. One of the other questions I ask is, are you hydrated? Did you have enough water or other fluids today? Check in with that to see first, is it really a sugar craving, or do you just need to have a big old glass of something? And then as we age, unfortunately, our ability to detect our own thirstiness decreases. Ugh, sorry about that, but it's true. And we just have more dry skin, dry eyes, dry mouth, and our gut motility dries up a little bit as well. So we have trouble pooping as we get a little older, which is why water is all the more important. So I'm going to go through a little, let me just check the time here. I want to make sure I've got enough time. So these are just a couple of ideas here. I can send this slide deck to you, but I want to get to our actual food demo. So these are just some ideas about adding things to your diet, snacking healthy, getting natural sweets in instead of candy or refined carbs, dates and almonds, figs. And these are a few ideas for some fun things that may satisfy that sweet tooth without necessarily depleting the body of the nutrients that it needs. So we need our fiber, we need our protein, we need our healthy fats, our complex carbs, which can be a grain or a starchy vegetable. We need our veggies and our fruits, and we need water/fluids. So I'm going to stop this for right now. Feel free to ask a question or two while I set up my little cooking demo. And all right. And sorry, I've had like the heavens over here on top of my head. Let me move this here. Any questions while I'm getting this organized? Thoughts or any confusion that needs to be cleared up? Or
those dark leafy greens, Mary?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, I'm having some sort of internet connection issue. 1 second.
I hear you now.
Okay, I'm turning off my video. For those dark leafy greens, do you need to eat them raw to get their maximum nutritional value, or could you steam them, or sort of flash them in a hot pan? What's your recommendation for kind of getting the most out of them?
I would say any or all of the above. Now, when we cook greens or vegetables in general, there are certain compounds that are lost from them. So it depends on what our goals are, right? If you want to get more leafy greens in the diet, you will get more leafy greens by cooking them because they will shrink down. You will be able to eat more. But if you're looking to actually really support something like your liver health, the having a leafy green more raw is actually going to ensure that that compound doesn't get destroyed by the heat. So it kind of depends on what your goals are on that front. But I would say mix it up, and if you're a little bit concerned about the amount of chewing that has to happen with a leafy green, you can massage that leafy green in a bowl with a little olive oil, a little lemon juice, just soften those cellular walls and makes it much easier to eat. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you.
Okay. You can juice them as well. Just get them in there. Snort them. I don't care. Come on. Okay. So what I want to do now, you've had a chance to hear about carbs, fats, proteins, fruits and vegetables, herbs and spices, and this idea of what a healthy plate might look like. And I wanted to give you tonight what I call my bean and grain template, because I'm going to clue you into something. I'm going to tell you a little secret. And that secret is I am a dietitian that doesn't necessarily enjoy cooking. I said it. It's true. I don't enjoy it that much, and I'm not that great at it. So I am like just any Joe Schmo on the street who's just trying to find the time to make a meal that tastes good and that is healthy for me without spending a ton of time in the kitchen and getting Martha Stewart's apron on and trying to be some sort of a master chef that I'm not. So I wanted to come to you tonight to talk about a template that you can basically make the same thing except to substitute different pieces. So I've got my bowl. Hopefully you can see me. If at any point you feel like you can't see me, let me know. And as I mentioned, this is a grain and bean bowl. And it is plant-based. I generally tend towards more plant-based meals because of the phytonutrients, because of the fiber, and because of the sustainability of knowing that plant-based meals tend to be more sustainable, tend to have a lower carbon footprint. So that's what I'm focusing in on tonight. So I've got a bunch of foods here, and I'm actually going to do one quick thing because I guess I don't have to do it, but I kind of want to because I want to just showcase how easy this can be. And that is the person who just asked about whether we should cook our greens. One thing that I often will recommend, again, for the sake of time and for the sake of ease and for the sake of not overcooking your greens, is to wilt your greens by putting things that are warm on them. So the grain that I've chosen tonight is millet. Now I cooked this millet like 7 hours ago, so it's cold. I'm going to actually go heat it up in the microwave, which is right there. And I also am going to heat up some sauteed mushrooms that I cooked a little while ago as well. So I'll be right back. Give me a second. I'm right over here, everybody. Don't mix me too much. Just over here by my microwave. Just over here by the microwave. And I'm back. Okay. So as I mentioned, I'm going to talk through some of the vegetables. So with this template, we've got some beans. We've got a grain. And I recommend that you choose 3 or 4 vegetables. So what have I chosen? I chose some beautiful kale. Why did I choose kale? Kale is a powerhouse of nutrients. As I mentioned, I gave it its highlight. It is one of the most protective vegetables out there in terms of its phytonutrient content. It also has a nice amount of calcium in it, magnesium in it, potassium in it, and those lutein and zeaxanthin, that word that you think is fake, but is in fact real. So I'm going to actually put that here into my bowl. So we're starting off with our kale. The other thing that I wanted to do is bring in some cabbage. So I love purple cabbage, again, because it's gorgeous. And number 2, the extra color, that purple, brings in another plant chemical, which is known as an antioxidant called anthocyanin. And that helps, again, to be a cancer fighter. It's very protective. And cabbage itself also helps to upregulate the liver's ability to detoxify things from our body, to transform any toxins, external or internal toxins that we basically just create by being alive, and helps us to eliminate them. So cabbage is great for that too. So I'm going to put some cabbage in here too. And you can already see the beauty of these two. I did wash my hands earlier, I promise. So that's there. So we're already getting some fun color. And then I'm going to add in some carrots. So again, I chopped these up earlier. You can slice them, you can dice them, you can shred them, you can, bite a piece of carrot and throw it in the bowl if you want to do that, whatever floats your boat. And again, look how gorgeous this is starting to become. And why did I choose carrots? Number one, they are rich in something called beta carotene. And beta carotene, again, has been known to have anti-cancer effects and gets converted by the body into vitamin A. And vitamin A is incredibly important for your immune system. So as we're beginning to build this bowl here, we are creating a meal that is ultimately supporting our entire body and the immune function of our body as well. The three vegetables that I've put in here as well are all seasonal. They all came from the local farmers market. And why is that important? Well, when we eat foods in season, number one, we are supporting our local economy. We are supporting our local farmers. And there's a reason why foods grow in certain regions at certain times of the year, because that is when their nutritional value is most optimal. So if you've ever tried a tomato in February, does it taste delicious? Not so much. And even, there are certain, like if you eat a blueberry or a strawberry in November, it just doesn't have the same taste as it does in the heart of the summer. So I really like to go for seasonal foods. And I believe I heard the microwave go off, so I'll be right back and get those warm goodies. So these are nice and heated up right now. Again, I chose millet because it's kind of a different grain from our typical rice that we get, or quinoa. It's inexpensive, and it's a crop that I particularly love because it's actually naturally drought resistant. So it's a very sustainable food as well. And it's an underutilized grain, I think, that's out there. That's a really nice, got kind of a corny, fun flavor. So we're going to put that on top. And that heat from the grain is actually going to help soften some of these veggies. So I kind of put this in there and let that be on top, almost like a little covering there. Can you see the steam? Give myself a little facial while I'm here. Oh, it's so nice. It feels good. All right. And my next vegetable, I am a big fan of eating raw food in the summer, but I don't know about you, but I'm freezing, especially today. It was so cold. So I can't eat all raw foods when it's November or December and it's like 32 degrees out. So I need a little bit of cooked food in my body. I don't know about you guys. So the next item that I have here, I don't know if you can see, these are again, local shiitake mushrooms and local leeks. So shiitake mushrooms are one of the few food sources that are rich in vitamin D. They're not a huge high source, but they do have some vitamin D. And vitamin D is really important for our immune function, our brain function, our inflammatory conditions. And it also helps with our mood. And the other great thing about shiitakes, again, they have an incredible, they're basically like anti-inflammatory powerhouses. They create all these incredible compounds that really help to reduce inflammation in the body, help improve our immune function, and they contain something called beta glucans. I know you think I'm making this up. My husband always does, but beta glucans actually support our gut microbiome. So that is part of our immune system. So I chose them for that as well. So I'm going to throw these on top. Again, they are also warm, and mix them around here. So they're adding a little bit of extra heat. And I'm going to wait just a second while I talk through some of the other things that we're allowing some of this heat to generate into some of, it's not like they're going to cook the carrots. These carrots are pretty hard, but nonetheless, they're going to give a little bit of extra benefit to that. So what else do we need? We've got our grains, we've got our carbohydrates in there, some phytochemicals from those vegetables. we need some fat. So here's where I bring in, and again, you can choose whatever you want. You can choose 4 completely different vegetables, right? Maybe you love celery. Maybe you love cauliflower. Maybe you love broccoli. I don't care. Just throw something in there. Maybe you're like, I love wild rice, Mary. What's this millet stuff you're talking about? Go with wild rice. Go with quinoa. Go with buckwheat. Maybe it's corn instead. So as I mentioned, we need a little bit of fat. So I chose some beautiful olives, not local necessarily. I think they're from Italy. Sorry, there was a plane ride that occurs. Maybe they're not the most sustainable. So there's some fat. And then I'm mixing it up a little bit with some other fat. These are local hazelnuts. I don't know if you know that hazelnuts are actually native to this section of the states here in the Pacific Northwest. Whoops. So I chose some hazelnuts to throw in, and that can give a really interesting flavor. Again, if you're not a hazelnut person, choose a sunflower seed, choose a Brazil nut, choose a cashew. I don't care, but you can continue to shake it up. So I'm going to throw some of those in there. You might want to chop them up to make them a little bit more, easy to chew. And the last thing I'm going to throw in on the fat front is this is actually some vegan feta cheese. It's a great brand that I've really been enjoying using. And for me, everything is better with feta. So this just gives a nice like Mediterranean flavor to it. So I throw that in there for a little bit of extra fat, again, just to help make sure that we feel nice and full. So we've got our fat component here. What do we need next? What are we missing? Can anyone identify one of the major macronutrients that we are missing?
Protein.
Herbs and spices.
Hey,
Oh, yeah.
good. You've been listening. Okay. So my protein source, chickpeas. Could I choose something else? Sure. I choose black beans, cannellini, Great Northerns, kidneys, whatever you want. I choose chickpeas because I love chickpeas and I find them very satisfying. So I'm going to put some of those in there. And then I heard someone say herbs and spices. Well, funny you should mention that. The brand of feta is called, oh my gosh, I'll find out from my refrigerator. I think it's called Violife. It's absolutely delicious. I don't get any money from them, but absolutely delicious. So look at our bowl starting to fill up. Those veggies are still at the bottom, hopefully staying kind of warm, but we're starting to look a little Mediterranean around here, but it's also starting to look a little colorless. So we need to add some color. So I'm bringing in, again, a little local, a little in season, parsley. You may love cilantro. Great. You may love basil, not super in season, but always delicious. Maybe you love rosemary. Okay, that works too. So I'm throwing some of that in there. So we're starting to make this pretty. And then the last piece that I want to show you, because who here likes a little sweet? Anyone enjoy the flavor of a little sweet something? I know. Okay. So this is where you can get creative and you can throw some little apple bits in there. I'm choosing, and this might be kind of funny because you might say, Mary, this isn't really sweet. And you're right, it's not really sweet, but we'll get to that one second. Cranberries, again, local and seasonal and incredibly healthy for you. They also have a compound in them that is supposed to be protective against cancer and also protective for liver function. So I'm going to throw some of these in there. And our herb as well, parsley, helps with digestion. So every culture usually has some kind of an herb or a spice that they add to their food naturally that just helps us digest. So we often miss that in our American cuisine. So I want to make sure that we add that as well. So I think I've got it all. Let me make sure. Let me take a sip of my dark cherry juice. You thought it was wine, but I fooled you. Delicious nonetheless. And let me do a little mix in here and bring up some of our vegetables to the top. Again, this grain is actually still nice and warm. And now the big piece comes. This is what it's starting to look like. The dressing, which I whipped up in this blender here. And this is a tahini, garlic, lemon with a touch of sweetness to it, a touch of the maple syrup. So remember I talked about the sweetness, that's where I got my sweetness. So we've got our our tart cranberries, but in here, we're getting a little bit of sweet. So I'm going to pour that on here. Get that to be nice and beautiful, luscious. Delish. And I'm gonna mix that up. Now, you don't have to use this dressing again. You could have used rice and broccoli and celery and peppers and dill and black beans. And then you put like an avocado cilantro dressing on there, or a tomatillo dressing, or, a miso ginger dressing. So it really depends on what flavors you like or what you've got in the refrigerator, but you're keeping the template the same. So it's beans, it is grains, it is 3 or 4 vegetables, it is some kind of fat, which could be cheese, avocado, olives, or olive oil. And there is some kind of sweetness. It could be raisins as well, or dried cranberries or something like that. And then some kind of herb or spice that helps to make it taste really good or really interesting. It could be peanut sauce as well. So here's our final product. We've got lots and lots of color. I can smell the garlic. I can smell the onion. I can smell the sesame or the tahini. I can in there. And voila. And I think someone asked a question about the shiitakes. Yeah, so shiitake mushrooms have been shown in actually quite an extensive amount of research to be very protective against cancer. And they also, mushrooms in general, are high in vitamin D, and they contain beta glucans, which are helpful for your microbiome. So there you have it.
Thanks. I think my audio had cut out. So thank you.
No worries. So I'm happy to take some questions. It's just 7 o'clock now, but I know we got started at around 7:05, 7:10, or 6:05, 6:10. So I'm happy to answer some questions if you have them. And just know that my answer might be, it depends.
First of all, I just wanted to say thank you so much, Mary. That was such a wonderful presentation. I definitely learned a lot. I'm sure everyone did on the call this evening. Feel free to just unmute yourself if you are muted and ask a question. I would actually just like to start with a quick question, something that you didn't really touch on, but that I know that a lot of us think about when we're cooking, would be salt. And I know that, there's a lot of research about how high salt intake isn't good for us. And I know the answer could be that it depends, but in sort of like salt alternatives that can really bring out flavor like salt does, is there any kind of recommendations you can make there?
I'm so glad you asked that, Nels. I actually cut that slide out. It's so funny. And I was like, should I keep this slide in? I wonder if anyone's going to ask about salt. And there you have it. So I think, again, salt, it's going to depend on the person, depend on your specific condition. There's only a certain subset of the population who are salt sensitive, meaning that their blood pressure may rise. And this is a genetic issue, that some people just have a genetic predisposition to having blood pressure rise in response to salt, but that isn't everybody. That doesn't mean we should all be pouring salt on our food, but salt can actually first of all, it brings out flavor. And when we use salt that is a higher quality or a sea salt, you tend to need less. So you might be spending more on the sea salt, but you don't need as much salt. And then that salt also has other minerals in it. So a sea salt will come with other natural minerals found in seawater or in sea life. So for those who are trying to avoid salt or reduce salt, it really is about the herbs and the spices. That is where we get great flavor. So whether it's, lots of extra ginger, whether it's a smoked paprika, which I think is one of the best and most underutilized spices out there because it's so flavorful, or a garam masala, a turmeric, even cooking with things that are sweet-ish like cardamom and cinnamon, that really helps to bring out new flavors so that people just aren't craving the salt as much. Great question.
Mary, what's your maple syrup brand that you recommend? And I'm imagining it's healthier than this is Butterworth.
This is Butterworth. It's not even maple syrup. I think it's maple.
Yeah, I know.
Syrup.
Just liquid sugar.
Yeah, exactly. One that you guys are so good at asking about brands, and then I can't remember the brands. This is actually I love this one because Field Day in general is a really inexpensive brand and it's still high quality. This is organic. It's grade A, which is the better grade. So that's an option. But there's obviously some. When I was over in the East Coast this summer, where my parents are from, we were able to get maple syrup fresh from the farm where it was created. So that's always a joy.
Oh, that's very cool. Oh my God.
What does it taste good? And thank you, Sarah. Any final questions?
What a wonderful program. Thank you. So much good information.
Thank you all so much. Thanks for your great participation, your questions, your insights. Really appreciate it.
Just before we go, I think we have one last little fun interactive element here with a raffle. Mary, would you like to introduce that for us?
So this is a book called Serving the Broccoli Gods. Anybody out there who loves broccoli, this might appeal to you, and I'm happy to raffle off a copy of this book to a lucky winner. Looks like we got a randomly generated name, which is Susan Youngman. Congratulations. Kind of funny to be promoting my own book. It feels a little funny, but anyway, I hope you enjoy it. It's a fun read. It's very easy, and it's just more of a fun, journey about funny things. So feel free to, as long as you don't live in Kathmandu, I can send it to you if I get the email, or the snail mail address.
And I will definitely connect the two of you. Congratulations, Susan, on winning our raffle. And thank you again, Mary, just for a wonderful presentation. That was truly terrific.
Thank you. I'm so honored to have been able to support all the amazing work that you guys do. And I thank you for helping so many people in need. It means a lot to me.